Now we're looking for legislation that allows a hold, that allows detention. If there is a prior domestic violence conviction against this same victim, there has to be a hold on the second time. If there are repeated protective orders more than one time, it's got to be a felony. And it's got to mandate jail time. And I am stunned to come here from New York and find out that if you assault a child or assault a spouse or a partner in front of a child, there is no separate crime. We've got to make that a crime, because there is no question that the consequences are long-term in terms of that child learning that violence is the only way to resolve conflict in their lives based upon what they are seeing between their parents or intimate partners. My office has created the VIPER, Victim Partner Emergency Response Team. And that VIPER system allows us as prosecutors to latch onto a case as soon as someone is in lockup with prosecutors, investigators, security analysts, as well as getting sworn statements and getting hospital records as quickly as possible so that we can solidify the case before there is any change going on. It is only with the help of the DC Council that we can make a difference for the victims who unfortunately are losing their lives to the person who once said that he loved them. I want to thank the agencies who are here today, and I want to again thank the mayor. There is still a lot of work to do, but we are certainly capable of fighting the fight on behalf of those who cannot do it themselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Judge Pirro. Good morning. I'm Jeff Carroll, Interim Chief of Police at the Metropolitan Police Department. First, I want to thank the mayor for inviting me here today to speak about this very important topic. Like everything in public safety, fighting domestic violence takes a multi-agency approach. I'm glad to be here this morning surrounded by our partners and the support groups that are uplifting survivors every day. Sadly, the need for this legislation has become even more apparent this year. In February, a repeat domestic offender fatally shot the mother of his child in the Glover Park neighborhood. That suspect fled the scene with their child before taking his own life. Thankfully, that child was located unharmed. And just this past Tuesday night, a suspect shot and wounded his former girlfriend and another man before taking his own life. In 25% of all homicides that have occurred this year, there has been a domestic relationship between the decedent and the offender. And although violent crime is down, domestic offenses are fueling an increase in assault with dangerous weapons, which are up 36%. The legislation announced today will help to strengthen enforcement of court orders by increasing the penalties for violating stay-away and no-contact orders, both pre-trial and post-conviction. It will modernize DC's kidnapping statute and create a felony unlawful entry charge. It also creates new charges, as the judge mentioned, for offenses committed in the presence of children. This legislation will update disclosure rules applied on our department, allowing us to better conceal the names of those who report domestic offenses. And in addition to the legislative steps outlined by the mayor, the Metropolitan Police Department is redoubling our efforts to spread awareness of the resources available to DC residents. Today we're announcing our No DV campaign, which you can see on the posters right here behind me. We want every resident to know the signs of domestic violence and know the resources that are available to survivors. And the message to the survivors is clear: know that you are not alone. Over the last month, our victim service specialists have deployed to over 20 locations across the city where we've seen repeat calls for service related to domestic disturbances. Our team and our partners at the Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants will continue to work to distribute resources and connect survivors with services. In addition to our No DV campaign, I want the survivors to know that our detectives are hard at work with their partners at the United States Attorney's Office to hold offenders accountable. And we want anyone listening today who needs assistance to call the DC Victim Helpline at 844-4HELP-DC. Again, that's 844-4HELP-DC. This hotline is available to anyone in need of assistance 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Natalie Otero from DC Safe.
Sorry, I'm very short. Hello. DC Safe has been at the front line of domestic violence in the city for 20 years. We've seen what happens when systems move too slowly and what it costs survivors when patterns of violence go unaddressed. We have been advocating for protections like this for over a decade. We know that when people are at high risk, every second counts. With the recent murders of Dr. Serena Fairfax, Shaniqua Elkins, Nancy Mateo-Bowen, and Devontae Curtis, the general public once again has been witness to the devastation that intimate partner violence can cause. It is pervasive and exists across socioeconomic lines and across every neighborhood, and it is our responsibility to solve it. The Protecting Victims Act of 2026 is a critical step in supporting survivors and saving lives. Doing right by victims is not a political statement, it is a matter of human dignity. DC Safe will continue to measure every step by one standard, whether it makes survivors safe. The toughest job we all have is still ahead of us. The survivors that we serve experience violence in multiple ways, and it is not an isolated incident. They experience it alongside housing instability, economic insecurity, immigration vulnerability, and systems that were not necessarily built for them. We must build systems that will not put victims at greater risk by coming forward. And we must remember that people who do harm also need a continuum of care to help prevent and break the cycle of violence permanently. This moment belongs to survivors and communities who refuse to stay silent. DC Safe has been a part of this fight, and we hope that this creates momentum to do even more in our community. I myself am a survivor and child witness of domestic violence, and I will continue to work for survivors' rights. There is more to be done, and DC Safe is here for it. We know that we know what still needs to happen, and so does every survivor in the city. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we'll be able to take a few questions. Let me acknowledge, too, that I'm joined by Deputy Mayor Lindsay Appiah, the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, the Fire Chief, Chief Donnelly, and the DDOT Director, Sharon Kirschbaum. On topic. Yes.
You guys mentioned just the uptick that we're seeing in domestic cases. Is there any reason that you guys are aware of that we're seeing this uptick? Any trend with that specifically?
Chief.
Yeah, so domestic violence is one of the areas that we closely do watch to see how that trend is. And this trend is something that not only are we seeing here in the district, but we're also seeing in other places. You know, the domestic violence can be one of the most challenging things because it does happen generally behind closed doors, and many times it takes a lot for a person to even call the police or make notification. There's a lot of factors that go into that. So as we are seeing an increase in domestic violence, we suspect there is even more unreported crime. So that's why it's so important, and that's why today, with the announcement of our campaign, again, to get the message out and make sure folks are aware of those resources. So it's something that we'll continue to track and see, what effects we'll have with that. But it's not unique to the district. It is an area that we're seeing. I think some of the effects after COVID definitely play into that as well.
Yes.
This is a question for the judge. You had mentioned that you're looking for legislation that allows for pretrial detention if there's a prior domestic violence conviction. Does this legislation